All right, I am calling to order the meeting of the Woodstock Finance Committee, May 5th at 11:04 a.m. Um, the agenda, the agenda is additions or deletions to the agenda, citizen comments, and then brainstorming about potential rate card structures using the new financial model. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. Are there any citizen comments? There are no non-committee member citizens. Are there any committee member comments? Hearing none, we can move to brainstorming. Okay, so this will be the first of more than one session, maybe not more than two or three, but definitely more than one session of thinking about the rate card structure. We have a financial model. It is complete, but it could have more features in it. And I think our discussion today will identify what those features are. At last meeting, we discussed there are two things to understand about the data that's in the model before we start actually just using the model. The first is that we cannot quite get to what we think is the actual revenue for FY25. The data that I have has data that says WAC FY25 budget. That may not be the same as the actual. It may actually be the budget. Robert isn't here, so I can't confirm that. We are 3% within 3% of that. We're 15. We're at 445, building it up account by account and fee type by fee type, and the WAC FY25 number is 460. So we're 15,000. It's about 3%. We were about 9 or 11% off last week. And so we filled in what we were told was all of the remaining accounts, and they still don't quite add up, but it's close enough for government work, as they say, since there's no one here from the government. But I mean, I think it's, to be fair, I think it's perfectly fine for us to build a rate card around this data. The second thing, which is important, not as it relates to the 20 years, but as it relates to the first couple of years, which I think are the most sensitive, because that's when the most sensitive, is that the financing structure that the town has committed to basically starts charging us for the debt, whether we use the money or not. Or to put it differently, it creates an incentive for us to do all of the projects as soon as possible because our costs don't change. We are receiving, for the aqueduct company, we're receiving about $5.7 million of this, sorry, $6.5 million, something like that. It's a total of 8.3 minus Vondel. So $6.7 million. And we're not receiving $6.7 million. We're given the opportunity to have $6.7 million when we spend it. And
so is it like a line of credit?
It's not like a line of credit. It is a line of credit with a term that I've never heard of and would never agree to, which is that you can have up to you can have $6.7 million. Whenever you spend it, we'll give it back to you. And we're charging you interest as if you took it all out today.
Is that interest different whether we use it or not?
No.
How much is the interest on that?
4.48%.
And the loan is given by whom to
the Vermont Land Bank. Well, there are two loans. One of them is for an $800,000 project. I think it's the Elm Street Bridge, which will in fact be used fairly quickly. I mean, the plan was to use it almost immediately, is my understanding. And it's interest-only loan, and you don't pay interest in the first year. So it conforms to what I think was planned and will actually happen. The remaining $5.5 million of principal, we are paying interest on that starting in July.
And what is that interest payment?
The interest payment in July in the first year, well, in fiscal 26, the interest payment is about $250,000.
And has it been determined that that's going to be a user cost or non-users as well?
No, this has nothing to do with the cost. Sorry, this is the amount that is assigned to the aqueduct company. So yes,
So users have to pay 250,000 of debt
of interest.
Well,
in FY26.
Correct.
Well, hold on a second. What's the money meant for?
The money is meant for the various construction projects that are planned. This is a timing. This is largely a point about timing.
No, but to Jill's point, if part of that has to do with, say, the hydrants, that
We're not paying. Users shouldn't be paying it all.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait. Okay, when you say users, okay.
Connected versus not connected.
So today, I thought today we were coming here to discuss a water rate card.
We are.
In order to do that, we need to know the amount of money that water users have to pay for the year.
I don't agree.
No?
What we need to know is to how much money the water company needs to pay. And the water company needs to pay about $250,000. Now,
my question was, are non-water users also paying something toward this debt?
When you say non-water users, you mean non-customers of the water company?
Yes.
Because, for example, the hydrant users don't use water either.
Yeah, we can say connected versus not connected.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. So the water company budget, the real answer is I don't know. What I do know is that the water company budget has a $240,000 interest payment.
Okay.
For this year. And that interest payment is an allocation, is not the total interest payment for the bonds, or two bonds, actually.
Okay.
It is.
So if we assume 240,000 of interest plus cost of service and all the rest of it, that's what we have to reach.
Right. Correct. That's correct. That's what we're modeling right now. Now, the way we model it, the one example that Kareem that raised, which is that the hydrant users might pay. We have that ability to shift this money to the hydrant.
Yes.
Right. But we don't have the ability in this model. I mean, we can add it in, and I'm going to make a long list of things that we should add in for next week. The ability to just say we're not going to, the town should just pay that. We're not going to allocate it to, et cetera.
Right.
So,
okay.
But the reason why I'm raising this, though, is it doesn't have anything. I believe that when we start talking about rates, we're going to want to talk about two things. How should we split the cost between the different users, the different connected people? And over what period of time should we make them pay? And because I believe that the increases that are needed to meet this particular debt structure are literally the worst possible way to take a community of people and say you have to pay for this. We still have to pay the money. It's still the same community of people. However we allocate it, who should pay what? But it's literally the debt, the way the debt structure has been explained to me, and I have asked 4 times, and each time I've gotten exactly the same answer, forces us to basically say, what we're going to do is to raise your rates by an astronomical amount multiple times in the first 3 years. And from that point in time, for the next 37 years, your rates are going to go down. And if you asked anyone how they would like the shape of that curve to be, they would literally say that's the worst possible way you could introduce a price increase to me. So I just want us to know that. It's in the model. We have nothing to, I can't change it. But I do believe that it suggests, possibly, if you all agree, I mean, again, these dollar increases aren't so big, so it may not matter. But the percentage increases are huge. And if you agree, then we might, in addition to talking about a rate card, we might want to show a scenario in which the town smooths the increase, in effect borrowing money, in effect, because we can, over the life of these loans, we can generate surpluses with modest increases. It's just we have to wait until year 10 or 12 to do it. And that may be something that the town chooses to do. And it is, in effect, a rate card technique that isn't, dollars per cubic foot or dollars per meter and so forth. That's the only reason I'm raising it. I just want to make you aware of that. Because when you see the numbers, it's going to be, oh, how can we prevent a 60% increase 3 months from now?
Right.
You know,
Because the town could borrow at lower rates, and there's also we also have an endowment fund that's worth a couple of $1 million that could be used
yeah,
somehow.
right. And if you were even to mitigate things modestly, you might not need to borrow. I mean, if you were to take 400 or 500, you know what I mean? If it's a point about smoothing. So I just want you to be aware of that. We start with this, but I want you to be aware.
So if I could just react to that, I think Jill made a very good point at the beginning by asking to clarify whether this is all connected or non-connected users, because that ultimately will impact, what we would recommend goes into the rate card in order to cover both the financial and operational costs relating to the water company. So that's point number one. Point number two, and you said, John, that we have the ability to be able to segregate between these types of sort of targeted allocation of payments, right? Point number two, I think you're absolutely right. We need to introduce us as the finance committee a recommendation that smoothes the payments. It doesn't make sense to create a revolution in town, right? And then point number three, as a finance committee, I think it behooves us to let the town know that we don't think it's very smart to start paying $240,000 a year interest and not start a project around that, because it's our, I think, mandate to say this doesn't make financial sense.
Right. I've already informally, on behalf of the committee, made that point in much stronger terms than you just made it.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
It's ridiculous to have people negotiating such terms without collaborating, without asking for advice from people who know what they're talking about.
Well, it may be so. Well, just to be clear, it may be that this is how municipal finance is done. It would not be the strangest thing that we've heard about municipal finance, but it would be close. So I don't want to. What I've said to Eric is, look, Eric, I'm not a municipal finance guy. I'm reluctant, by the way, to but I've never
Is
heard.
it because we're dealing with the land bank instead of a bank,
Well, no bank would ever.
Okay, but the land bank, these are their terms. So what can we do?
No, my
Isabel?
we can negotiate it.
I answered that lady in a separate email regarding the cancellation.
Green, you're muted. I mean, you're not muted.
I sent her confirmation telling her you.
He can't hear us now either.
He took his headphones. Oh, that's right. Yeah, right. Kareem, we muted you. You taking your headphones off doesn't mute you. Kareem, if you can hear us, we muted.
Sorry, I was telling Isabel something. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
No, we heard every word.
All right.
Oh, you
So
did. Sorry.
All right. So that's sort of where we are. Kareem, I agree. We should be saying that. All right. Let me just show you the starting point for the model. And again, let me apologize. I've been really, it took a little bit longer. It's not Todd's fault. It is Gyra's fault. It took a little bit longer to get the data from them. And then it took me a little bit longer to do this. So I wish I was a little bit further along, but I do think we can still begin to get a feel. And then we'll have another meeting if we can do it a week from now or 2 weeks from now.
Can you guys hear John?
Oh,
No, he's frozen.
I'm frozen. Oh man. All right.
All right. You're back now. So yeah, go ahead. So you were saying something about gyros, and then
anyway, I'm sorry that this isn't further along, but I do think it'll get us started, and then we'll continue and so forth. I did check with Robert. From a timing point of view, we're quite on track. We're not behind in terms of timing. They're looking to send out their first bills on the new rate structure in September. So our original time frame is still pretty reasonable. I think we have, if we took 4 weeks to come up with our recommendations, or 5 weeks, I think we'd be fine. So I'm not trying to delay, but that's kind of where we are. Okay. All right, so this is the current rate card. And so this assumes we don't change the rate card at all. What that means is we charge $60 per quarter for the fixed charge. We charge $90 per hydrant. We charge nothing for regular pipes, which is almost everybody, and we charge these amounts for bigger pipes. We charge basically just under 3 cents per cubic foot, above 300 cubic feet, above 299 cubic feet. We don't have any volume discounts. We don't have any volume penalties. We don't charge differently for pools or irrigation. On the expense side, we assume all of our expenses, with the exception of our debt repayments, are increasing by inflation every year. These are
Sorry, you skipped the fixed usage cutoff. Could you remind us what that is?
That's the 299. So anything, so 300. So the meter fee pays for the first 300. It's really the first 299 cubic feet, and then you pay 2 cents for every cubic foot 300 and above.
Okay.
Inflation is assumed to be 3%, and in our financial plan, all of the expenses, with the exception of the revenues increase by inflation, although we now have an ability to change. We have two. I'll talk about how we deal with price increases generally, but prices go up either by what we say they go up by. The Economic Development Reserve Fund does not increase because they agreed to keep it flat. And the infrastructure options tax does increase by inflation, as do all of the expenses, with the exception of the principal repayments and the bond interest.
Hey, can we go back to the assumptions tab?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I think it would be helpful in front of each one of those fees. For example, meter fee between parentheses quarterly, hydrant fee, I don't know, is this annually or something?
Yeah.
Just so that we know the timing for each one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay.
And so, by the way, these are all quarterly. Everything is quarterly, actually, except for, all three of these are quarterly. I'll just add it in right now.
All right. And then the usage fee, what is that? Is that also, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And then inflation is annual, obviously. So.
Yeah. I won't make all these changes real time, but this one is an easy one to make.
Can we do we have the opportunity with the model to change that per cubic foot back to gallons?
No,
Is that an easy calculation?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because the reason I say that is I have neighbors and I pay their water. They don't understand what a cubic foot of water is, but everybody understands what a gallon of water is.
Right. Well, the only thing is that the meters measure cubic feet. So I think the solution in terms of communications is to send on the bill, just to print it out to do the calculation on the bill. Basically, you use 200 cubic feet, which is 672 gallons, as opposed to in the model, if that's okay. Just the
model should be whatever's easiest for us. So I'm talking about communication. Yes.
Yeah. Right. That's a good suggestion too.
Yeah.
I think we have some things that aren't going to be on the index card, rate card recommendations that are related to the rate card, and this is one of them.
Okay. So we don't have to make those changes now on the fly, John, but it was just a suggestion. And on the financial
hold on,
plan,
before we leave it though, Jill, could you record this? Do you mind recording these kinds of suggestions, or record that suggestion at least? And as we
it's here in the document that we all discussed and agreed to.
Right, okay.
So it's there. We just need to refer to it.
Oh, that's fine.
Right.
Okay. Kareem, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll add some notes.
Okay, and then once we make those changes, inflation, annual, etc., this is fine. Great. The financial plan. Does the financial plan, the next tab, under the expenditures, it shows the bond interest.
Yeah.
Does that model assume, back to Jill's comment earlier, that the burden of the financing is completely shouldered by connected users, notwithstanding the fact that there is some money also coming from the EDC reserve fund and the options tax.
It is the, all right, so hold on one second. So here is the debt repayment. So first, all right, so there are two bonds.
Mhm.
There's an $800,000 bond, which I believe is targeted directly for Elm Street. It has
Okay,
different terms. It's an interest only, it's an interest-free loan.
okay,
And it is used 100% for Elm Street, and 100% of the cost of that loan, principal, well, there is no interest, principal repayments are in the budget for the aqueduct company. Now,
okay.
I don't, the process of putting things into the budget of the aqueduct company versus putting into the FY26 budget of the aqueduct company versus the town or village or sewer budgets, those are the only other budgets we have,
Yeah,
was done, I believe, was done with a complete consideration of which, of who should pay for what and by who. In other words, anything they put into the aqueduct company, so someone felt should be paid for by the
Right,
aqueduct company, and the aqueduct company can only raise revenue from users.
right.
no, I
However,
understand. Yeah, but my question, sorry. So the only,
so let me just explain. Sorry. So
yeah,
the operating expenses obviously are in the aqueduct budget. The only thing that's not the operating expenses are these two bonds. The
yeah,
$800,000 bond is 100% of it is in the aqueduct company, and as I understand it, it is being used to pay for repairs to the Elm Street Bridge.
Right.
okay.
But
But
but the point is, Kareem, to preempt your question, the thing that we can play with in this model is how much is charged for fire hydrants.
Yeah, so I guess what I was trying to say, this model right now assumes that the connected users are shouldering 100% of the cost, correct?
no, it depends what you mean by the cost. The second bond, just to finish,
Uh-huh.
the $7.5 million bond, which the voters
Mhm.
approved. Of that bond, the amount, the first in FY25, for example, 336, well, let's take FY26.
Yeah.
Well, it's the principal. All the principal is okay. So it is a full 7 million.
There's a $7.5 million bond, of which either 5.3 or 5.9 million is, sorry, hold on one second, is allocated to the aqueduct company, and the remainder is not allocated to the aqueduct company.
Yeah, but in your financial plan,
This bond
the
interest is the portion of the 7.5 million
this
that
yeah,
has been allocated to the water company.
so 5 point whatever plus the
Well,
800,000. Well, there's
Correct.
no
what?
interest on that. Sorry.
Let's make it simple. What percentage is it?
It's either 70 or 79%. And the reason
Okay, so it's
Uh,
70. Let's just say 70% for easy.
it,
The town has decided 70% of the bond interest goes to the water company.
well,
That's it.
well, I think that's okay. Just to be really precise here, I would say that someone has decided
Exactly. That's
that,
fine.
no, but the reason why I think it's important is to say that what we're assuming is that I think an assumption of this model is that that decision was not was made, and we are not supposed to opine about it.
I agree.
Right.
That's what I'm just saying. I just wanted to know what the percentage was.
And actually, the 30% that the water company is not paying, isn't that the number that was discussed for the EDC funds to pay?
No, no. Well, that's possible. Jesus.
But if that's the case, then they should be taken out of the revenues
I agree. No,
on
no,
the financial plan. So that's why we need to get some clarity.
I believe. Okay, no. You're right. You guys are absolutely right. I'm just frustrated because I have had incomplete discussion. It never even occurred to me that
So
that's the case. I
can I
agree.
go back to basics? Why isn't Robert here?
I don't know. I can't explain it. He was invited.
It feels like it's wasting our time
It is.
to have him not look at our work and not be part of these discussions. And I can't believe he has anything more important for 1 hour on a Monday morning.
Agreed. I agreed. I invited him. I
You
surprised.
just
And I
froze
think
him,
that we
Jill.
need to get Eric and Robert to agree to take part in these discussions.
No.
Because the last time he came, he really pissed me off. He appeared at a meeting. He hasn't used any of our research. He hasn't, I don't even know if he had access to it, and it's wasting our time.
I agree with you.
It
I could not.
gives the impression that no matter what we come up with, they're not going to use it. They're going to do whatever they want to do.
I understand why you're saying that. Robert was not instructed to investigate all of these things. He's just doing it because he's interested. I believe that he has not made any. I don't believe that. Well, let me you know what? Let me just raise this question back again with Eric, and I'll sort of say, listen, here are the questions we have, the factual questions, one of which I did not ask. I did not ask about the EDC money or the options tax money, this whole point here. That's my fault. I just assumed, my understanding was that this model accurately reflects what the decisions were, but I did not precisely verify that. And to be perfectly honest, Robert is not able to verify that either. I need to discuss that with Eric.
But if we go back, if we stop getting on our high
Yeah.
horses, which is easy to do, and go back to the purpose of this meeting,
Yeah.
here's the amount of money that our model has to come out with, and the variable that we have to play with a lot is how much is charged to the town for fire hydrant. Is that correct?
I would say no. If you're saying a singular focus on that, I would say no. I think we need to focus on all of the variables, but that's certainly a very important one.
Right, but in terms of the discussion we've been having about is it fair for water users to absorb these costs, the variable that we have to play with is fire hydrant costs
For
to
that
take it off water users
for
if we
that
want to.
for that issue, yes, it is.
Yes. All right. So we could agree to end this part of the discussion and move on with the model.
Yeah. Although,
But I'm sorry. I agree with you, Jill. I'm still not clear on one thing, and if everybody's clear on that, great. I will shut up and we'll just We keep moving on. The financial plan, the numbers in the financial plan, notwithstanding that revenue piece up there, right? The interest line and the cash repayment of the principal right now includes the 800K to fix the bridge, and that makes sense. It should be to the connected users, and 5.9 out of the 7.5. Is this a correct statement?
yes.
Okay, great. So this is great news because now we're really focusing on what, quote unquote, should impact the connected users. Now, this can be funded by the rate card, which connected users will pay. But then there's an underlying question around the EDC money and the options tax. Is that funding anything for all of the non-connected users and connected users, or is there anything else that the non-connected users should also be paying? And we don't have to answer this now. We can figure that out, in their revenue, because we're dealing with two things. We need to create a rate card that impacts directly the connected users, but we need to also create a model that's going to make the WAC company, whole at the end of the day. They can't be in the red, right?
Yes, I believe that I believe, and I will confirm that part of that question has been answered by another body, which is which portion of the debt should be paid for by the connected users, including the hydrant users.
Okay.
Connected. I believe the way that in other words, the way that the allocation of the $7.5 million of debt, which was not fully allocated to us, and the difference wasn't, well.
Well, the decision's been made. It's 5.9. This still leaves that philosophical conversation around connected users are being hit twice. One as, town people, and two as connected users.
I don't think it leaves that for discussion. In other words, what I'm saying is that I believe that the decision was made for us to not discuss
Okay, fine.
that you described, other than, and Jill's point, which is also correct, is instead of discussing it, we can achieve mathematically the same thing by discussing the hydrants.
Okay, so it looks like this model now is relevant, and it looks like really assuming that those expenses are accurate, the projection of them, et cetera. The one line that we want to influence, because we are going to get EDC money and option tax money in order to cover the operational cost and reserves of the WAC, is line number 5, which is what should those numbers be in order to turn the stuff in the red, turn it back into the black, right?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's start playing around with it.
Right. So this is, sorry, are there any other questions before we go ahead? Okay, I will confirm, just to close the loop on this, I will confirm that I will confirm both that these two line items are money that is directed to WAC. And secondly, I will confirm that the loan repayment allocation of 71%, which is what this model uses, is the correct allocation to WAC.
Right, and then the difference will be charged through our taxes, I guess, right? The 30%.
Well, it will be charged to in some other way.
Right. Okay.
I assume taxes, but
yeah.
Okay. So this shows if we take the current rate card.
So sorry, can I just one more thing based on what Jill said? That hydrant fee that is there, that's a hydrant fee that is impacting connected users only, or anybody in town, because everybody takes advantage of the hydrant fee. And it's important to answer that because that model right now is only dedicated to connected users.
The hydrant users are connected users. The
Uh-huh.
bill gets sent to the town.
Hydrant users, but how about people who are not connected and take advantage of the hydrant?
So, Kareem, to use different words,
Yeah.
the hydrant bill is paid by the town on behalf of all residents of the town. So if the hydrant bill goes up, everybody in town pays a little bit towards it.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that hydrant fee.
Nobody pays a hydrant fee unless they have their own personal hydrant.
Okay.
All the others go, but I think all of them are town hydrants. The bill goes to the town and it goes to all residents in the town.
Right.
Everybody.
But so sorry, I think my question wasn't clear, and I apologize about that. I think what I was trying to ask is if you go to the financial plan on row 5, which is the revenue, you don't have to do it. We all remember it's the revenue line. Does that hydrant fee impact what gets fed into row 5?
Yes.
Because if it does,
Yes.
Because the reason it does is because the people who have hydrants, which is almost entirely the town, are connected users and they pay the hydrant fee.
Right, but there are some people who are not connected users that this is where I'm getting confused.
So everybody pays, okay, Kareem, everybody pays their taxes. Every resident pays taxes.
Right.
In the tax bill that is sent is the cost of hydrants. So a person who gets water in their home will pay a share of will pay for the water that they use plus anything else we add on, and then they will pay for their use of hydrants through their normal tax bill, as will Alan, who isn't connected with
That's
Got it.
right.
Okay.
That's how I pay
You pay
hydrants.
Got it. So
I
so
am
for
not connected,
yep.
and
Same here.
So for connected users, that hydrant
That's totally
fee it's not going to appear on the rate card, then, if I'm understanding it right. It's only meant here for us to calculate what we should charge in order to
Okay,
cover
we have
the
to send
cash.
Kareem. All right, here we
Come
have
on.
to send.
Oh, come on.
Now, hold on 1 second. We have to send a bill to. We have to send a bill to
The town.
700 to 734 people,
Yeah.
right? Including
7,200
this account. We've got to send a bill to that account, 50-00550001.
Okay.
That account has 80 hydrants.
Got it.
We have
Okay.
to send them a bill for $28,800, the same way that the
All right. So now it's making sense. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
Okay. So this, if we keep the current rate card, which is basically, the current rate card is basically this and that.
A quick question, John.
Yeah.
So is everybody paying the same rate? I see you have segment
Yes.
pricing, but
But
Everybody is paying exactly the same water rate.
okay,
The only difference is the pipe size, if you have a different size
okay,
pipe.
got it.
Okay, and that's the different prices of pipes. If you have a normal size 3/4 inch pipe like everybody, which is 90%, there's no charge for it. It's when
Right.
you get into a 1 inch to a 6 inch pipe, there is an additional charge. And you can see those. 201 is a 1 inch, 202 is 1.5, 203 is 2, 204 is 3, and you can do the math to 206 is 6.
And that is that pipe charge in addition to a usage fee.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're paying.
Oh, no, there's no pressure fee or anything else. That's the flat rate for this
The
pipe.
pipe fee, just because you have a large pipe doesn't imply you're not paying a pipe fee for more water because that's in your usage fee. So
Correct.
you're paying a large pipe size for something else like
Which would be
water
repair.
pressure.
Water pressure and repair. Yes.
So let's take a look at what
But it's a minuscule amount. I mean, if you have a 6-inch pipe and you're only paying $90 a quarter, that's not a lot. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
It's
Exactly
$90 a
correct.
quarter. Yeah.
But
If it's
So
expensive
is
or
that
not, I
like
don't
who
know.
is that? Like the Woodstock Inn or something?
Yes, people.
They got a
large buildings.
6-inch pipe. I know it. Yeah.
Anybody can have one. It's just if you want one, you got to pay for it. And it's the
But they're
reason
not
it's
paying
more
much.
No, it doesn't matter how, but
Okay.
the point is that you're paying, this is only just, I assume, the only I can come up with is for repair cost. At the end of the
why
day,
is it
the
repair?
price-
What's it got to do with repair?
I don't know, it costs more to repair a 6-inch pipe than a regular.
No, I would think so. So
Yeah, but if
the inn uses,
okay,
I think
the
the inn uses, just to, I think, to explain to me what the most rational reason is for this is the inn uses 1 million gallons of water a year.
Mhm.
yeah.
If they had a 3/4 inch pipe, it would take them 3 years to deliver their 1 million gallons.
Right.
And so they would have to kind of rotate around the guests in the hotel saying, you can flush your toilets between 8 and 4 and so forth. And so if you're using 1 million gallons a year, you kind of don't want to get it through a 3/4 inch pipe.
So we could, so on the theory side of things, then we could get rid of pipe fees and just go to our usage of water over certain limits.
That's true. Because if that pipe broke, they would have to pay to repair it. So I'm not,
Well, okay,
yes.
I think it depends where it broke.
exactly.
But I mean, if it breaks between, anyway, I don't know where the pipe size changes. But to Jill's point, we can, and so while we're talking about volume, the model has a very simple way of thinking about volume, and we could make this more complicated. I don't know that we need to at this stage, which is to say, if we wanted to, we can set a different price. That's what's called a premium fee, and the premium fee cutoff. We could say, for example, if we said over 15,000 cubic feet, which is about the top 10% of the customers, or about 60 customers that use 15,000 or more cubic feet. Sorry, it's 1 million cubic feet, not 1 million gallons. That we could say that above 15,000 cubic feet, we're going to add on another 3 cents per cubic foot if we wanted to have a disincentive for water usage. Or if we wanted to give a volume discount to our biggest customers, we could have a minus 3%. So that's how we would introduce in the model, other than a straight, it's basically 3 cents per cubic foot. We could have multiple breakpoints in this model. I don't know, again, when we need it, we could say 15,000, then above 50,000, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is the, okay.
So sorry, and then the financial model assumes putting reserves aside, right? Every year, I missed that. I just want to make sure that we have that covered. Yeah, we have it. Okay, great. Okay.
Well,
so
no, hold on. It actually, I think they're calling them capital reserves, but I believe they are thinking that they would spend $55,000 a year and then inflating that on. Well, sorry, yes, they're putting it aside and then would be spent. So it's a wash. Over the long run, it's a wash.
Okay, great. Okay, fine. So I guess if we look at this rate card and looking at what other towns do, not necessarily only in Vermont, but generally speaking, what is the variable that towns tend to sensitize the most? Is it the usage fee? Is it the meter fee? What is it? I mean, so that we're not outliers completely, like
Wasn't it? It was all over the place, wasn't
Right.
it?
It's all over. Each town does something usually uniquely different from a large city to a small town.
Mm.
I think
And the rate of the water was different all over the place.
So we can't, from that research, Kareem, it felt like we couldn't copy somebody. We should adopt something that seems sensible to us and look at certain variables.
So I mean,
that
I'm gonna throw something stupid. I like the concept of if you're consuming more than a certain amount, you should probably pay a little bit of a penalty. But then I would then steer away from sort of also hitting them with segment pricing, because then you're double hitting people, right? So I like that concept generally because it also sends a good message around, conserving water, et cetera, right? So there's that messaging. So I would say let's start by saying what might be an interesting sort of good premium fee to put above 15,000 cubic feet.
well, before we do that, let me just explain what these charts are so that what the results of the model are, which is this section to the right of the green arrows.
Yep.
That when we can start by putting in these two numbers. I agree with that, Karim. So what this shows is the surplus or shortfall that the WAC has. And this shows the rate increase that the model is showing. The rate increase is simply applied to all of these numbers. Okay, and so obviously the WAC. So what we want ideally is 0 all the way across.
Yeah.
So all right. So
can you just? I'm sorry. Can you just explain rows F through I, that little table, in English?
F.
If the FY26 increase is between 0, what increase of what?
No. Okay, what this is saying is compared to FY25, if we were to implement the rate card that's inside this box, which right now is the FY25 rate card, here's how many people, as a result of that, for example, if we change this to, instead of 02961, if we double it to 6 cents. If we double the rate card to 6 cents and that's all we do, 75% of the accounts their bill will increase less than $150. 3% of the accounts will increase more than 1,000 and so forth.
And that's a year, right? It's
per
an
year.
annual,
Correct.
It's an annual increase.
Okay. So
right.
so you could say, so if we quadruple the hydrant fee, what will happen to our debt?
Right, correct. We could do that right now.
Okay.
That's 360.
It doesn't do much.
Gosh, interesting.
This is why the water company was talking about increasing it tenfold.
I mean,
Okay.
let's approach this in a sort of
this generates a profit right away, and then
yeah. So I just want to say I was just proposing an approach. Let's do kind of what's common sense, and common sense is conservation, given where the earth is going. And so if we start by saying, let's put a premium fee and see what actually happens. Do we know what kind of premium fees certain towns charge so that we're kind of in line, or we have zero idea?
I would say that I think we know what we charge. We're charging 3 cents. Here's the way I would start with it, Kareem. I would start by doing these three numbers. Let's increase from 3 cents. Let's increase to 4.5 cents.
Okay, and your model is assuming that there's a 3% ratepayer increase, and the 3% applies to what? To meter fees, hydrants, usage
Everything.
fees, to everything?
Applies to everything. And
Okay, great.
right. And in a minute, you're going to be able to see that we can change. Right now, it's 3% everywhere.
Right.
But we can do it year by year if we want to when we get into the smoothing discussion, but we won't get into it. So let's just do this. Let's just try a scenario. I've only tried a couple, but let's just change this to 4.5 cents. And let's put in a premium fee. So let me just show you one other thing. Because when we get into the timing, Jill, you asked about this first section up here.
Yes.
But let me also just show you this down here. Right, so this shows our cash flow in the first 5 years, the second 5 years, and the 10 years after that, and the total. Right, and so this is gonna, so there are some scenarios in which if we want to mitigate our tax rate, basically every scenario which fixes our cash flow in the first few years gives us huge surpluses in the next 15.
Yeah.
Right, because of the way the debt is structured.
But that's important because we can't foresee other things that might break.
I understand.
Right?
We may want to do
So-
it. I'm just, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get started. So let's just try. I'm just going to propose 4.5 cents. And let's say that for above 15,000 cubic feet, which is 60 accounts, let's say we increase it by another 1.5 cents. So they would pay 6 cents. So that nearly balances us in the first year.
It actually cuts the cash flow problem in half.
More than in half.
Yeah.
This number was 5.6.
Right. Well, I was just
Here, actually, you know what? Here, let me just go back. Hold on one second. Let me just put this number here.
Well, you want to copy it as a value, otherwise it's going to change it.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So now if we go to 4.5 cents, we go 1.5 cents, and we say 15,000. So now we've cut it by more than half. And we've got, now this is, okay, one of the enhancements to the model. This just shows, this column is really not that important. This shows that 88% of the people in this case get only a less than $150 increase, but it's only showing it for FY26. I'm going to build this model so it shows it out for the future years.
And then, sorry, if we so I understand when you change the usage fee, because it's something that also is going to increase by 3% every year. So that's the impact in fiscal year 26. Can we assume that in fiscal year 27 it's more or less the same split between the accounts impact over time?
Well, no. So what happens in FY27 is that the debt payments jump up again because we've got in these first 3 years we've got an interest-free principal-free loan, and then we've got some grace period. So basically,
I guess the point I was trying to make is, would it make sense, because those first 3 years are so critical, to show a fiscal year 26 table, a fiscal year 27, and a fiscal year 28, because it might really change the way the number of accounts are being impacted, because that's what you're saying, right?
It would make sense, and that's what I was suggesting that I will do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
But in the meantime, so here's the problem. So you can see the problem is that now we could generate a significant surplus. So one thing we could try is, what kind of rates do we need to make this number 0?
And how about play? So are you going to is this scenario all based on rates? usage fees. Can we do another one where we're playing with hydrant fees, or can we have a mixture?
Yeah,
I
no,
think we
absolutely. Yeah,
can-
yeah, yeah. Let me just see if we can get the first 5 years to zero. It'll just take a couple of assumptions, and then we'll do
Okay.
that. And then, let's go around. We can go around. Jill, you can go next, and Kareem and Ellen, and we can do whichever scenarios we want to see. But I'm going to try to get the first 5 years to zero, which is a little bit of a call of the kick the can down the road strategy. So we need something in year 2. So I'm going to increase this to 6 cents, which gets us to 4.50, and then I'm going to increase this to 3 cents. Let's see what happens there.
That's 30 cents.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
30. That's good.
All right, so I have to increase it to 7 cents and 0.04. All right, now we're positive, so way too much. So 6 cents and 0.04, and there we go. All right, so we're pretty close.
So the other interesting piece also is the fact that if you looked at, there's 31 accounts that are going to see an increase between 1,000 and
1,000 and up.
yeah, but do we have an idea what the up is? Because it might
Yeah.
be unacceptable that
Well-
4 accounts are going to see $150,000 increase.
Right. So here's what we can look at. We can look at these people. We can look at the people who are paying the premium cutoff fee. That's the only thing that's in the model right now. So
Wow. So immediately look, row 9. That's Riverside Park. You don't want to hit them with an excess fee.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Safford Commons the same. They need to be, this model needs to somehow account for them. And the high school would be the same. I mean, they're
Well,
large users, but they're societal goods.
well, I mean,
But
is
aren't
that
there
Mauricio not a societal good?
but isn't
No, he's just a private landowner.
isn't
He's a private landlord.
no
So in other
but
words, the
isn't
members of society are not good.
but
No.
isn't the high school water bill paid by all of the town residents anyway? I think so.
There's a
not
lot.
just
It's
our-
much more complicated than that. Wow. And then the farmers market itself would be hit.
Well, let's just go back for a minute. Those are the people who would be hit. But I guess the point here is that one type of recommendation we could make, and I'm not in favor of this, I'm just pointing it out, is to sort of say, you know what, let's put in a rate structure that basically gets us whole for 5 years as we continue to figure things out, understanding and communicate to people and say, look, we're going to have I don't know why this is coming up as 3% here. Something is wrong because obviously.
Well, because you are increasing whatever you put in the model by 3% every year.
Right.
Maybe it's an input rather than
Here,
output.
no, here it is. This is the problem. Hold on one second. It's okay, sorry, no, this is the problem. Give me 1 second.
So while he's doing that, it seems to be an easy way to do this. I sort of like Jill's way, which disperses the cost without charging the people too much more for water, or at the first is to dispense it to the hydrants as much as possible so that all residents feel the hit.
All right, so Jill, go ahead. You lay out the scenario.
Okay, so how much would we have to increase hydrant? So if we take away the usage fee increases and have them back to where we started.
Right. Wait a minute. Sorry. Okay. By the way, this is a 75. If we keep, so something is different here. Hold on.
Yeah, because
I don't think that was the number. You got
made an
9
error
cents
in the
there.
usage fee.
I transposed.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much would we have to increase hydrant fees by in order to have positive cash flow?
Positive cash flow in what period?
The first 5 years.
So can we say 0 in the first 5 years? Or fine. Okay,
Yes.
so let's see. Let's say $800. So 800. So that would increase the town. If the town has 80, right? It would be they're paying 28,000. There's 80 times 360. It's 28,000. They're currently paying 29,000, and it would be 800 times 4 times 80. It would be 256,000. So it'd be a $225,000 increase.
And if
Oh,
you
that makes
divide,
sense, doesn't it? They're paying for the loan.
and if you divide that by let's call it, 800 tax paying folks, that's an average of how much? I know they're not all paying the same rate, but just to see an
Well,
average.
no. That 256,000 would be spread across the entire town.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you divide
How many
256,
houses? 3,000 residents?
There's 18. I think there are 1,800 property parcels.
yes, true. So if we divide 250 whatever thousand by 1,800, what's that on average?
$142.
It might be a good
Wow.
idea to do that, for the first year.
Well, the first year there's a profit because 26.
Right, but my guess is that the town, if you look at the size of this, $150,000 surplus and then $150,000 deficit over the 4 years, it really takes you out to 7 years, 6 years, because the town can float that kind of money without issuing a bond or whatever. But let's ask Ellen what, Ellen's the disconnected person, right? How
And me.
And
I
Tom,
thought too, yeah.
I do think that the users should pay more.
Well, I think the users are getting
Maybe
a
not
pretty
cover
good deal.
all of it, but
Well, so all right.
it's not going to fly with the non-users if the users are not going to pay more. Because
So what
WAC
variables
hasn't
would you
been
like?
charging enough they have the benefit of many, many years of this low rate, which has brought on this disaster.
So what if we do?
And the lack of repairs. So why shouldn't they do a little catch up and pay more?
So Jill, let's see if we can get Jill and Ellen. Let's see
So
if we can
most towns are charging between 55 cents and 90 cents a
per
cubic
what
foot.
per period.
Cubic foot.
No, not 55. That's 30.
Oh, 5.5. 5.5.
You
And
mean
7.
5.5 cents? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's Jill and Ellen let's do this. Let's reduce the 800 and increase the 2.9 cents.
Okay.
So and let's I'm just going to make this up. So I'll increase the.
Let's make it 5.5 or 5. Yeah. 0.055. That's a fair assumption of other towns.
Yeah, I was thinking about 5 cents too. But
Okay. And now let's reduce the hydrant fees to
Yeah.
something more reasonable.
Right.
Okay. 500 still seems a little bit high from 90.
475 gets us to, basically break even for 5 years.
well, what if it's still that number is going to be hard to sell just because optically it looks screwed up. So instead of 90, let's say, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here. Instead of 90, let's say it goes up to say 120, and let's say that the meter fee goes up to 70, and like stuff that seems reasonable.
But the meter fee is going to go up 3% every year.
No, I understand.
All of this is going to go. So is the hydrant fee.
But what I'm trying to say is we've been probably paying that meter fee for a gazillion years. So why don't we do like a one-time increase to like $70?
Oh, 70? Okay.
Yeah, I said 70. And a hydrant fee, something that's more palatable. Let's call it 120 instead of 90. It's more like palatable. And then the premium fee, let's put a premium fee, but instead of a 15,000 cutoff, let's put it at 30,000 cutoff and see what actually happens. Sorry, you're doing the other way around. Let's do it half of the usage fee or whatever. 2 cents is fine. Yeah.
0275.
Okay. And then let's call it 30,000.
All right, we're 200,000 short, but we're getting there.
I'm trying to come up with numbers that could be
Yeah.
palatable, both to connected users and to people that are not connected and are, paying for the hydrant fee.
So how about if the premium went up to the highest price that Todd found in research, which is 9 cents? What does that do?
Well, that's gonna give us a huge surplus. A 9 cent premium, it's on top of the 5 cents.
Yeah.
The premium,
so it'd be 4.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have one too many dots there. Yeah.
That make any difference?
Yeah, it added, it
Yeah.
reduced it
And
by 100,000.
can we look at who's actually impacted at 30,000?
Still, we've got a few people there that it doesn't make the logic doesn't
the
make
thing
sense.
is, the reason, by the way, when I first looked at it, that must be a mistake because I doubled the premium price and the increase only went down by $1,000. The reason is because 15,000 or 30,000 is a rounding error for the inn. They're using $1 million, so basically they're paying a premium on on a huge amount. So,
But it's interesting that even if you included the top 6 users, you'd be including Safford Commons and Riverside Park.
Yeah, but I mean, they are using
Stafford
a lot of
Commons.
water.
No, wait, let's just look at this. Just Stafford Commons. Is it because they have 1 meter?
Yes, they have 1 meter for 28 houses.
So we could give them 28 meters and everything goes away.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm just saying that.
But then they would need
get
to pay. But then they would need to pay the meter charge, right?
And not,
Yes.
I'm not arguing,
So
but I'm just,
the same logic goes for the Vermont State Housing Authority. That's
Mhm.
Riverside Park, which has
Correct.
multiple mobile units, sharing a cost.
So anyone basically, anyone doing a consolidation of residential units is disadvantaged by the premium fee in a way that we probably didn't intend because people aren't flushing their toilets a lot at Safford Commons. They're flushing their toilets an average amount at Safford Commons. So,
but wouldn't that extra fee be shared, be billed back to all of the people that are in those units?
But
Yes,
they shouldn't
but
be
why
charged
would you
at all.
charge the poor? Why would you charge the poorest people in the community a premium fee? I don't think that was our intention.
I think a better answer, Jill, is sorry, Todd, go ahead.
So can we just highlight the 3 or 4 that are in that variable, like the
Yes.
Vermont State Housing Authority? That just highlight it.
Well, it's going to change as soon as I push the button.
I realize that, but I was wondering how many of them are there? There's 2 or 3, right? Is there any others, Jill, that you see that is sort of like the Union, the high school?
High school.
But the high school, in my opinion, doesn't really matter because that bill is paid by everybody.
Well, you have to have a collective view on the high school. If anything increases high school expenses, the negative repercussions are huge because of going over that limit.
So these are the ones that are sort of like these 4 out of 30 or 4 out of 25 are because they are multiple users with 1 meter. That's the only reason.
It's really just 2. Well, the homestead also. Well, okay. One of the things we want to do here is we want to have the ability to give the situation where multiple individuals are driving the usage, and we don't want them to have to pay it. We don't want to. They don't need an incentive to stop using 1 million cubic feet because they're not using 1 million cubic feet.
That's what I'm trying to identify, is that which ones have 1 meter instead of.
I don't think it's going to make a huge. I don't think it's going to make.
Okay, but the Woodstock Inn, if their bill is going to increase $60,000 a year, when they could build their own water system.
Right. And they will.
So we can't do that.
And sorry, stupid question. Why is there an update button on the top? Is this something that needs to be pressed?
Yes, I pressed it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sorry about the highlights. I was just trying to identify these 2 or 3 that just sort of like outliers that were unintended, and why is because of the meters.
Yeah.
multiple
Okay,
users on one meter.
All right, I agree with you, but I also want to play devil's advocate. Let's get rid of the premium and see whether we still have the same problem.
Well,
Yeah.
can I just,
I would get rid of the premium.
but before we leave this page, I just want to
Yeah.
point out that the total here, the total increase that we're getting from the premium is 160,000. And the two things that we talked about are 13,000. So 90+%. So we're talking about a 10% on the margin, the ability, which is fine to include it. I'll build it into the model where we can take specific accounts and say that they're not susceptible to the premium charge, but it's not going to change the direction of the rate card.
Right. But since we're looking at who's impacted by the premium, is there a way to do the same exercise if we get rid of the premium fee and see who's impacted by just an increase of the usage fee?
Well, this chart in FY26 is designed to give you a very high level view of that.
I know, but I think we need to get into the nitty gritty because of certain entities.
Can we get rid of the premium fee for a second?
Yeah, can we get rid of the premium fee?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Just take the 35 cents out.
No, keep the usage fee. It's fine.
Oh no, sorry, yeah.
We wanted to set that at 5 cents.
Yeah, increase it. Okay.
And we got this at 70.
No.
And the hydrant fee needs to go up.
No, leave it at 70. I guess the hydrant, again, it's all about optics, right? So if hydrants go from 90 to say, I don't know, come up with a number.
200.
Say it's $200. Okay.
Wow.
So
that doesn't have the effect that we want at all.
No. But let's go ahead and keep playing with the fee. Let's say that the usage fee goes up to 7 cents. So we're doubling it pretty much.
More than doubling it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
so
it's positive. So come down a little bit.
Okay, so
and I'd like to bring the meter fee back down. The meter fee is to replace a meter. It's not to do anything else. Then
so we don't have so the charge that we don't have here is an access fee.
No. The meter fee is not to replace a meter. That every person who has a meter gets paid $60 a quarter.
Right.
I know, but it's to maintain and replace a meter when it comes time to do it.
No. Well, that's it. But it's also to pay the salary of the manager, and
That's to make sure there's somebody, an employee, and equipment and stuff to keep replacing them. That's what this fee is for.
No. It's also for the accountant who sends out the bills and the rent that
That's fine. It's everybody. It's all that stuff. I get it. But
so the charge
go ahead, Joe.
So when we discussed this way back in December, we talked about the meter fee being really an access fee. It's for the privilege of having water delivered to your property.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Okay.
And so the privilege of having water, it could go up. To have water delivered to your property is a privilege.
Right. So it looks like with those numbers,
but it's going to adversely penalize the
poor,
people who can afford it the least.
Correct.
Yes.
So Woodstock Inn is paying $70.
Yes.
Everybody at Stafford Commons has a meter.
Yes.
They would each have to pay $70.
So that's really why. So the interesting thing about the modeling we've done so far is that the premium fee is not achieving we talked about segment pricing. Are we thinking now that the premium fee can do the job of segment pricing if you exclude a few people?
I think it can. I think that there's the idea of, I think segment pricing is an indirect way of getting at big users versus small users, and we might as well just get if we want to do something different with big users than small users, whether that's good or up or down. In some industries you give volume discounts to big users, and in other industries you put a premium on it.
I think
we could get rid of. I'm not pushing the segment pricing. That's why it's grayed out. We can just get rid of it.
From a messaging point of view, I think, and a climate point of view, I think it's better to say that the big users, we're hitting them with a premium, as opposed to saying, oh, you have a commercial outfit, even though you bring money to the town and you're hiring people and you're giving people work, we're still going to hit you with another fee.
Well,
The interesting thing is, though, that on the premium fees, some of our commercial people were there. The Woodstock
Yeah.
Farmers Market was there.
Yeah.
So,
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just have something I want to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. So can you remind me this fixed usage cutoff, meaning anybody less than 300 gets charged a flat fee? Is that what it means?
everyone gets charged the $70 fee or $60 fee.
No,
Everyone gets charged
I'm
that.
talking about the 300 fixed usage
Yes.
cutoff.
Go ahead,
And
Todd.
your first 299 cubic feet is free. It's included in the $70 fee.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You hit 300 and you start getting charged the 6.069 cents per cubic foot.
Okay.
Right.
So what I would like to sit there and say is that I think we have an opportunity here to help the community. And I think if we sit there and say, can we read the meter fee the meter fee at $60 brings in almost $45,000 a year. And if we look at that as just to replace meters, just I know, John, okay, just hold on 1 second, just for the cost and the guy to go and replace meters. And think of that as that's all that's for. And the privilege, because we got to monitor it. That's that. The water itself and the usage could be for the salaries and all of the people that are needed and the equipment and whatever have you to run the system. And if we look at it like that, we can probably reduce the quarterly fee so that, and maybe we end up having to sit there and reduce the usage cutoff a little bit so that, and that might increase some savings even. Because and that's what I'm trying to think of globally. Can we help the poor or the lower income families or the older couple there's just an older couple that doesn't have a whole lot and they're not using that much water. There's a lot of them.
So
I just want to respond quickly. Todd, can I make a suggestion? I think
Sure.
the desire to change pricing for low volume users
Yeah.
is a very interesting idea. I think I would support it. I'd want to think about it. But can I just suggest that we stay away, that this meter fee was very, very badly named, and we should stop using it. We can achieve just what you described by changing, I'm going to call it the usage fee.
Yes.
And lowering it and lowering the cutoff for the usage fee. The reason is that I don't think it makes logical sense.
Well, if you want to call it an access fee.
Correct, an access fee. Sorry.
Call it access fee. That's fine.
Okay.
It's still it's a standard flat rate fee that everybody has to pay no matter what your income or any level is.
Right, exactly. Jill, go ahead.
Can our model deal with a person who has really low usage? Remember, one of the things we spoke about was that everyone should pay a basic amount, even the second homeowner who only visits twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
Can we, is there a way in the model to account for that?
So there are two ways that the current model can account for it in one way, which is, this 60 that was $60. This $60 is paid by everybody. Mm-hmm. It is that fee. It's the access fee.
Yes, but I know in the model you asked for the homestead and non-homestead users.
Right. I'm going to come to that. Right. So and so there's a principle. There are two competing principles here, which is understandable. One is everyone should pay something. That's the $60. And the other is that you should pay more if you use more water. That's the 2.9 cents. The way that I think about this and the premium fee is that if you take the total bill of all the customers and divide that by the total cubic feet you use, the small users are paying way more per cubic foot, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it's way more per cubic foot. It's 5 times more.
Right.
And so what we might want to do, and this is the effect of Todd's suggestion, and I'm not sure if Jill, if you were arguing for this or against this, but
I don't know.
If we reduce the access fee, so one of the charts that we should put up here is to show for the different segments, not commercial and residential, but users of this volume, users of the next tier of volume. Just do it by volume so that we're not casting aspersions on whether people are better than companies that are better than not-for-profit institutions. If you do that, we could begin to level those, not level them perhaps, but because the only
Identify them and then.
the only way to level them is to get rid of the fixed fee. But we could bring them closer together. And so that would look something, that would look more like if you had an access fee of $30. I'm just going to put this in. I'll leave the hydrant fee there for the moment and say that we were charging 10 cents a cubic foot. Okay.
Wow. You did it.
Well, we've also increased the hydrant fee.
We can reduce that now. And that's a.
But
everybody-
you've now got that 65 or 70%. You've now got a group. You've now got more accounts. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, something is wrong here.
Yeah, there's now 400 instead of 700 accounts.
Yeah, we lost 300 accounts. Is it possible someone has more than $1 million? No. Hold on one second. Let's just see if we get the. Whoa. All right. Wait. Let's just go back to the. Let's go back to the original. All right, something is wrong with this number here because it's changing. Yeah. All right. So I've got to fix that. Sorry about that. But in any event, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
So I think that what I was suggesting, I think yours is one scenario, and another scenario is increase the access fee for everybody so that there's almost a flat fee that covers a certain level of usage, which is more than second homeowners use. I think more than an occasional visitor uses. But otherwise, by having a low access fee and the usage fee, the people who visit this community very seldom have a benefit.
We could have a homestead fee and a non-homestead or a non-homestead fee.
So wait,
okay. We could have a non-homestead fee. Yes?
No, but can I talk about homestead and non-homestead? Because we live in town and we have non-homestead, but we're also commercial. But we're here the whole year and we're employing people and bringing money to the town.
So actually, this may not work until the homestead and non-homestead definitions are changed to include a third commercial one. And that will happen in the next couple of years.
Or if we can identify the second home.
Well, we can take out the commercial. We can identify the commercial, I assume.
Oh, he's have residential non-homestead.
Yeah, residential and second home. And I don't know how you come to that because we don't know how often people come here.
We have that. We have the data split. We have the residential split into homestead and non-homestead.
Yeah, but non-homestead doesn't always mean that you're not residing here. I'm non-homestead, but I'm residing here.
But you're commercial, aren't you?
You're commercial, not individual, not resident.
Sorry, it's not. Sorry, we're not dividing. Sorry, let me be clear. We have divided resident. We have residential homestead and residential non-homestead.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
So I would fall under commercial then.
Right.
Yes, you're commercial first.
Okay.
That's it. No, you're commercial. Period.
Yeah, that's it.
You don't have a. I didn't think of it. So we could do then a non-homestead fee.
It's not. Yes. It's not clear we're allowed to, but let's build it into the model. That'll be the one segment that we are non. We'll get at the segments through. Are you all comfortable getting at the segments through volume, with the exception of residential non-homestead?
And maybe institutional. Maybe that will do it for us to take out the Sanford Commons people.
What's institutional?
I was hoping it might be schools, Stafford Commons, Riverside Park.
There's different residential, there's commercial, hospitality, I think it's the H, right?
Hold on. Billings Farm and Museum is not institutional. So this is tricky.
Industry. I believe that's industry.
No, it isn't. It's institutional.
It's institutional, but Billings Farm and Museum is a non-profit that should pay their fair charge.
Yeah.
This classification was was done was Charlie Kimball, I think, went through and had in his mind, it was a reasonable attempt, but we could change it. So we can.
And that's the problem. The more complex you make the model with these definitions, it's going to be
Yeah.
harder to implement.
Right. And
Right.
I think I think we should cut it by volume. I like the idea of volume, John, because it doesn't matter how rich or how poor or how much, or anything, it really comes down to volume.
Except for second homeowners, residential non-homestead.
Right.
I would like a scenario with
We
them
can
having a
identify, at
good
least
flat
if we can
fee.
identify them to see what that does. If we have two lines that we can change either way.
So
Even if
so
it's the
then
same number, we can at least see how much is for them and how much is for homestead and non-homestead. It's really clear. But I have a problem. I do have a concern with charging. We could have a commercial rate, which may be just a tad more than non-commercial rates. I don't know if that's fair to people. I don't want to. I don't like the idea of charging them a premium because I think, John, you mentioned it, or Jill, that they just might create their own water company. And I don't know if that's the direction we want, but we could charge them half a cent more or something.
That's half a cent more is not a premium.
but
Well,
why?
it is,
But what's
it's
the
for all
rationale?
commercial. It's like
But what's
anybody
the
who's
rationale?
commercial.
But what's the rationale in charging commercial more?
I'm not. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Maybe the definition you could have is that you have a premium rate and you exclude customers who are serving multiple homes from that 1 meter.
Let's call those consolidators. That's really unfair. Yeah. Right.
If you have a premium rate, you're basically penalizing business. And the larger your business, the more you pay.
Well, and they do some of the businesses, and some of the businesses in town do let other people use the toilets, and use their bathrooms.
Yeah.
And so
you don't want to penalize the farmers market just because they use a lot of water.
Well,
they're a store. They're a company that makes a profit, correct?
But
they're about to leave us, so I'd be very careful with them.
That's true.
No, I agree. I heard that
the select board, one of the things they asked us among the competing priorities that they gave us, which is, again, it's understandable. You can't do this without having competing priorities. But we have to give them a rate we have to give them a scenario in which, at least one scenario in which rates increase for volume, because they asked us to create incentives for conservation.
Yeah.
So one of the scenarios we do needs to have that, because that's the incentive for conservation is the more you use, you start to pay more.
So John, this is a really
I don't see how that's conservation though, John.
It's not
conservation is taking a shower once a week instead of one every day.
No, sorry. They didn't tell us.
It's not really.
They didn't tell us to conserve water. They told us to create an incentive to conserve water.
Yeah, but how do you?
The way you create an incentive on it. Sorry. Remember that a rate card doesn't turn any pipes. It doesn't reduce water flow. It doesn't convince people of anything. It does only one thing. It sends a message about cost. And when you increase cost, you create an incentive to not do the thing that it costs.
You can identify how
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying we were asked to provide a rate that does that. We can't go around and tell people we weren't asked to do an advertising campaign to save water. The only thing we can do is change the price.
So the Woodstock Inn would be hit, the most, say, by
well, they're going to get hit no matter what. Any increase, they're going to get hit.
That's what I guess the point I was trying to make is that you can't incentivize them to reduce water because their guests are going to take as many showers as they want.
Right, but what you can do is make a guest pay for the water the same as I do as a resident, and that's what John has been talking about. So because they've been underpaying for so many years, they're going to get hit by a big increase, and you could argue it was completely fair.
But by the way, sorry, let me just say that they absolutely can encourage people to use less water. Please place your towels on the floor so that we don't have to wash them, or don't place them on the floor. If you hang up your towels, we won't wash them. If you do put them on the floor, we'll take them and we'll wash them. Our job isn't to change people's behavior. It's to create an incentive for people to change their behavior, and they'll
Yes.
figure it out, or they won't.
So it's now been an hour and a half,
Yeah.
and I think this model is amazing, John. I think you have a little bit of work to do that you notice that, which is small stuff. I think it's just a matter of you checking some clicks and stuff and switches behind the scenes. I love it. It'd be nice if we could see something with a volume instead of which we all agreed on, which I think for usage, correct? That was the volume to see if
Yeah.
Yes,
the
yeah,
different-
yeah.
Is there?
And then I think we should just regroup because we've been here an hour and a half,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
we met our meeting time, and
I have a quick question. Is
I think
there
we
an
all have
easy?
good ideas.
I have a very quick question. If we increase the usage fee, say to 6 cents, right? Is there an easy way for us to check who's mostly impacted, like when we check the premium tab,
Sure.
That's you mean you want a list of the names of the people?
that are the most impacted?
Well,
So I have a suggestion.
Those that are having the highest increase. Just like we click on the premium and see who's impacted by
you mean
that.
you want to click on this cell here. If this says 17 people, you want to see who those 17 people are.
Either by clicking on it or by
well, fine. I'm not
going to another table and sorting it or something.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Because
so-
we may be still facing the same issue that we faced when we looked at the premium, is what I want to say.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
I have a suggestion for to do before our next meeting,
Mhm.
which is that we each write up
Exactly.
3 scenarios of what we would like to see, the reasons why, and then we can start seeing what are 5
Commonality.
scenarios that we can present to the select board.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And you now know the changes that I'm going to make. Let me just tell you what capabilities you have to create a scenario. In fact, you know what? Yeah, well, I'll
Can you
just tell
send
you.
it out?
Sorry?
Would you be willing to send it out, or are you just going to say it?
Well, let me just say it here. It's basically the quarterly access fee. It's currently
Yeah.
$60, right? The
Yep.
quarterly hydrant fee, it's currently $90. The pipe fees, which range from $7 to $90, if you want to change those, just give a percentage increase. The usage fee is 3 cents, just call it 3 cents. The premium fee is however many cents you want above however many cubic feet you want.
Mhm.
So the premium fee just gets added to the usage fee, right? So if it's 1.5 cents, the fixed usage, the cutoff for the access fee, I'm going to call that the access fee cutoff.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to give you the ability to charge non-residential, non-homestead a premium.
So the access fee cutoff, just for me to understand again, anybody using less than 300 cubic feet does not pay the $60.
No,
No,
that's the number of cubic feet that you get for free by paying the $60.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I'm going to add the ability to have
Non-homestead.
a premium for everyone, and then a premium just for non-homestead users. And
Right.
also we can add the ability, I don't think we need to do this, but I'll build in the ability to exclude certain customers from the premiums. But we can do that offline. It's not going to change the broad direction. It's going to have a 10% impact, not a 90%. You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
It's just.
But I'll build that capability in so we can get the numbers. We can, when we're ready
So
yeah.
will you circulate that model so as we play with it, we could at least have a sense of what we're trying to do? And I'm assuming that by sending you 3 scenarios each, you would like a few bullets as far as the rationale behind our scenarios, right?
That's what Jill was suggesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Actually, Jill, can I make a suggestion if you don't mind?
Yes.
Because you're good at this. I'm going to build the model and I will send it around, but I can't send it. But I think we need to meet. We definitely can't meet next Monday. We need to meet in 2 weeks, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I will send the model around.
And will you have those number of accounts fixed?
Yeah. I'm going to
Okay.
fix that. I'll send the model around early next week.
That
So
sounds
you'll all
fair.
have a week to do it. And can we set up a meeting on the 19th?
Yeah, sure. And when you send it around, could you remind us to provide you back with 3 scenarios and a rationale for each?
Yeah, actually, what I was going to ask you to send those to Jill.
No, fine. But like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm trying to say is when you send the model, say, hey, by the way, I'm giving you this model, but it's for you to use it. And please, send to Jill your 3 scenarios and your rationale behind each one of those scenarios.
Fine. I'll send a form too.
And then Jill,
So
you know what you could do? You could load all of that in ChatGPT and ask it to break it down to you in categories and common
Kareem,
things.
I'm going to pass this back to you. I have 0 time, and so I'll pass that to you. That would be great.
Well, okay, fine. I can show you how to use ChatGPT if you want.
No, I know how to use it. Thank you very much. We have a
Okay.
shortage of time. Perhaps you can ask ChatGPT how to create time.
Yes. Okay.
And could we also have that meeting on the 19th? Could it start at 10:30?
Yes. Or I can.
Yeah, I can too.
Great.
You'll send an invite, right, John?
I'm sorry, say it again.
You'll send an invite?
I'll send the invite right now.
Okay.
As soon as we're done. Display. I'm gonna, yeah, okay. And display average cost. Let me ask a quick question. Do people how do people like the idea of seeing the average, just the total bill, whatever it's for? I mean, I'm going to leave out hydrant. It's basically pipe fee, access fee, and usage fee. Which all have to do with using water for normal purposes. To take by volume category, low, medium, high, whatever the breakpoints are, and seeing what those categories are paying per cubic foot, so that we can
Yes.
see, and that allowing us to then set price, and basically having the ability to set premium prices for those groups, so that we bring those averages closer together, not identical,
Yes.
closer together.
Yeah.
I think that's a primary purpose, a primary desire of this group.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot, John.
So then what's going to happen to that is that the premium construct is going to be multi-tiered, because you can't just say large, small. We're going to say large, we'll have 4 or 5 volume categories, and each one will have, if you want to, at some point, we'll have the ability to add, if you're between 15 and 30,000 cubic feet, you're going to pay an extra penny. And then after that, the next 60,000 feet is another extra penny. And then you're going to pay whatever, that kind of.
And then what I will do is I will make a table so that we know cubic feet to gallons, so we can have an idea, so people as
All right, that'd be great.
I just think it's helpful. I like the idea of gallons. So I'll make some sort of table so everybody just has it.
Okay.
Because there was in that model where in the version where we looked at the heavy users, there's some individuals there that I wouldn't expect to see.
Could be that their meter is broken. Well, here's an example. I'm going to be on some list. I paid a water bill for a house that has 2 apartments in it. I paid for this cycle $3,750.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure that the reason is that and by the way, typically we're paying the fixed fee, the small, whatever. We're using less than 300 cubic feet. And so one of 2 things happened. A, the meter was broken, and we haven't been paying for water for 4 years. Or, and this is really quite likely, is we had a leak. Because we investigated the leak with Gyra, and he brought engineers over and stuff. I mean, we had this puddle in the backyard for 9 months, and we couldn't find the water. And we dug, and they sent sonar, anyway. So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that it could happen to individuals. So, anyway.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's a good discussion. We've got more to do. I'll get the town to, I'll get the town, and I'll do what we said to the model, and I'll get the town information that we talked about at the beginning. Try to reconcile just confirm all of that to make sure that the model is reflecting what the decisions were that were made.
So thank you very much, Todd and John, for all the work.
Todd,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh,
Thanks.
Todd, looks like Todd
I
signed
think
off.
he's had to go.
What's gone?
All right, thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
sorry,
Bye.
we need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I propose a motion to adjourn.
Is there a
I
second?
second it.
All in favor?
I
Yeah.
Bye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.